no?
Yes, we're live.
Okay. Yeah, there's about a 30-second delay, so.
There you go.
All right. Thank you very much for attending today. We're going to start the Animal Services Advisory Board meeting. First order of business is our call to order and the approval of our March 17 minutes. Those were included in your packet. I need a motion to approve.
I move that we approve minutes.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we're going to start off today with the City of Wichita attorney. She's going to be going through the Kansas Open Meetings Act today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank
I'm
you.
Jennifer regarding it. Let's get it passed out to them here. I'll make this available for the members who couldn't be here. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you.
How are you? I'll just sit here. So this is a training that is provided to all the city advisory boards that exist. And we just do this because we want to make you just have an awareness of the Kansas Open Meetings Act because it does apply to this governing body. You are appointed by the city council. They're clearly subject to it. But because you are what's called a subordinate body, then you are also subject to the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So the Kansas legislature, like other states, have declared that government should be open, meetings are open to the public, and government business is not conducted in secret. And so there's some simple rules to follow just to keep in mind. It's not too hard, and I don't foresee you having any problems or ever had any problems that I know of. But because you're an advisory board, we do want to make this training available to you. So it does not apply to meetings. What it does apply to meetings is city staff, when there's just a group of city staff or city staff and maybe one or two of you. That's not enough. But when it becomes so the typical meeting, the definition we look at of meeting is defined by state law, and that is there in your middle of your paper. Any gathering or assembly in person through the use of a telephone or other means of interactive communication by a majority of the membership of a body or agency subject to this act for the purpose of discussing the business or affairs of the body or agency. And so the Kansas Open Meeting Act, or KOMA, applies when there is a gathering of a, quote, majority of the membership of a body. And it's my understanding that this is a 9-member body. Okay, good, because that's what I put in there. So your magic number is 5. So 5 of you or more cannot have a meeting that's not open to the public. This is clearly a meeting that's open to the public. 4 of you can gather. It's not advisable that you do any business without notice, but you can have a majority conducting business. And so we typically think of a meeting as something organized. It could be something that's not planned. It could be happenstance. It could be a phone call or conference call that just grows or it evolves. And it could be informal conversations and you're walking out of this meeting into the hallway or in the parking lot and then 5 of you are still talking. That could be a meeting if you're talking about the business of the People Advisory Board. So you just want to make sure that the business that you discuss is done within the context and the confines of these meetings. And so that's pretty easy to remember. Electronic communications, so just an email string now, a group text, it can happen, you're starting to just plan a meeting and, when can we meet, or, something just happens spontaneously. I think that your staff probably keeps you all in line pretty much on that and organizes your meetings, and you don't have a lot of, I'm guessing, a lot of spontaneous scheduling. The 4th bullet point is an interesting one. Now it's become a thing that posting on social media could even create almost a simultaneous meeting. If you are sharing or all jumping in on maybe a Facebook page, it's not even maybe about the Animal Control Advisory Report initially, but you're all jumping in on maybe a council member's page or a and you're voicing concern or thought about what could be city business of this board. There is an actual case that came out of Lincoln County, Kansas this year, where I'm sure none of these, two of the three county commissioners in this small county ever thought they'd be having a meeting. But they, seemingly harmless interaction on social media turned into a serial meeting. They had comments on Facebook almost in real time. And so there was actually two complaints, one on 1 month and one at another. And they were found in one case to have been discussing something that was coming before the board in a meeting situation, even though it was on a Facebook post that wasn't even there. So that's kind of where you want to get away from this gray area. Just be aware that in the world of interactive electronic communication, that could be. So flipping over to the next page at the back of this one, we'll just talk a little bit about that. What are typically meetings or gatherings, including that are not meetings, fewer than 5 members. Just correspondence, email, if they're not interactive. If it's a one-way email from city staff to you, that's not an interactive dialogue. You can have that. If you show up together at a wind search game and you're all sitting together and chatting, it's okay. It's not a meeting if you're just having a social gathering. You're not talking about city business. If you have attended a seminar or presentation, an educational matter that's related to this or something else, that's not a meeting either. You know, you're not talking about the specific affairs or business of the city. If you were to, just engage in the dialogue in an email and went back and forth, I would say just try to stay away from that interactive email stream. So then that's the one type of meeting. Then the serial communication is another meeting where one meeting could happen in theory over several weeks or months and you never even see each other, but there's a serial communication maybe involving 5 of you at some point where there's 2 emails here and a third person brought in and there's 2 more people brought into another email stream or text group chat in a common topic of discussion. Or you keep, the 5 of you keep running into each other and just keep talking about something, again, on the way out in the parking lot or seeing each other at another event. And over time, if 5 of you are brought into that collective discussion, 5 or more, that could be a serial meeting. And it has to actually be attended by at least one of you to reach an agreement on some matter or business before this board. So it's a little bit more higher bar. But it's the intent of this prohibition to prevent decisions from being reached outside of the purview of the public discussion. Just needs to have, want to raise awareness that you have that obligation to just keep your discussions in the public arena. And so that's what provides for open government. Just some quick advice: don't reply all or forward emails, and don't use a third-party agent to share information back and forth to what you couldn't discuss. If you were in a meeting. Serial communications could incur inadvertently over even months if it's building up to 5 of you on that same topic. And then social media distributed, remember, social media interaction could be. So when there is a majority of your group here, you must just have an open meeting to the public. We must give notice to the public of date, time, and place. If any person asks for that meeting notice, the city staff should be providing that. I think you've got a list of anybody who makes that request. We provide that notice to media or to anybody who's requested. But anybody can come to our meetings. They're open, which is the rule. If there is an agenda available before the meeting, that should be made public. If there is no agenda, we don't have an obligation to create one, but if there is one, it should be made available. We should allow camera recording subject to reasonable rules that would allow orderly conduct of the meetings. And then in certain situations, the state law under the Kansas Open Meetings Act doesn't allow for an exclusion or exception to open meeting. It's called executive session, and you don't close the meeting, you don't adjourn the meeting, but you simply recess into an executive session, which is closed to anyone but this board and maybe your legal advisor and staff. If there's a matter that meets the criteria of open meetings exceptions, that would be a personnel matter, attorney-client consultation, and I could go on down that list. But it's unlikely for each violation. However, this statute is enforced by the Kansas Attorney General's office or the district attorney's office. They take an approach that is first, let's educate first rather than penalize. They would try to just give you some opportunities to take some more training or something. I think fines are probably the last resort, but I can't always speak for them. So, but anyway, those two offices do investigate and enforce the law. Citizens can make complaints to the district attorney or to the Kansas Attorney General. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer questions. Just want to raise your awareness and make you aware that five is the majority for this group, and that's the number that we take down.
So, you've been saying city business. Is it any city business?
It's
or
the business of this board.
This board? So if we're talking about the new library.
That's fine. Good question. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah.
And then I was looking through last night on the Secretary of State's page, and it said that email chains to, or communication to decide a date for a meeting, just for scheduling, is an exception.
You have the right to have an administrative matter discussed if you're trying to reschedule or cancel for the snow day, or something comes up, and when will this work out? You can discuss that administrative type of a matter. It's not the merit of, it's not the discussion of a decision or business venue, but just things like, I hear so-and-so sick today, can we reschedule? Or where should we be, this room's not available?
Or I was an idiot at the last meeting and forgot to set another next date, so.
Absolutely, and thank you for reminding me. That's a good exception, and that's an exception you can have. You can have those kind of conversations about, hey, when should we meet, or I can't make it, or something that's just administrative.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can you verify on the serial communications, is it, you said that it was 5 people involved with that, is that on any one date, or is that over
Over time, yeah, over
Okay.
time.
All right,
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
And there's no guidance on what time it would be, if it's, I think it'd be case by case analysis by the AG or the DA, but, yeah, it'll be over months, if it's the same 5 people.
Okay.
And it could be, it doesn't start out with 5, it can start out with 3, and then 2 jump in. Thanks for, yes.
I have a question. I would just like to clarify. So many times this board receives a lot of communication from the general public, and I just want to make sure that whenever we're receiving that communication, getting that reply all back to everybody that's on there, and then there's a dialogue that goes back and forth between the board member with all of the board members on there, as well as city officials and stuff. That is subject to this, correct?
Yes, it could
Okay.
be, if it becomes interactive, that's the key, if one person just forwards it, that's probably fine. If maybe one person forwards it and only one person comments, that's probably fine, but you just want to be careful with that.
We have the situation there multiple times, like we would receive something from general members of the public, a board member would respond, the general member of the public would respond back, and it has gone back and forth over time with everybody, watching, and it's all going back and forth. It's happened a few times. So I just want to make sure that this board is acting appropriately.
Yeah, we would just say, advise caution on those situations, and then direct your, constituents, saying this is a good subject for the meeting, and maybe, we talked about in the meeting, in a regular schedule, if it needs to be discussed.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you for coming today. I do have someone that says, can we turn the volume up at all?
We'll just have, I have it up as loud as.
Okay.
Yeah.
They said I'm good, but let's just be honest, I talk loud, so we'll go from there. Thank you very much for coming today. We appreciate that. We will absolutely add this into our notes from the meeting today. Thank you. A couple of housekeeping items. Today is Dr. Kelly Jones' first board meeting with us today. Thank you very much for being here. I know you've attended the education committee already, so baptism by fire, I suppose. We are going to give opportunity for public comment. I'm going to move this down in the agenda just a few, since we just started from today and we had our presentation. So we're gonna move on to staff reports with Lieutenant Hungria, please. I would stand right by the microphone if possible, so they can hear you.
I think my voice carries pretty good, but I've got the stats for this month and last month. I will go dog bites by district first. District 1 in March had 17, and in April had 12. In District 2, you had 8 in March and 6 in April. In District 3, you had 8 in March, 7 in April. District 4, you had 7 in March and 7 in April. District 5, you had 3 in March and 12 in April. District 6 had 11 in March and 6 in April. Dogs that were deemed potentially dangerous by district. District 1 had 1 in March, 3 in April. District 2 had 0 in both March and April. District 3 had 0 in March, 1 in April. District 4 had 0 in March, 1 in April. District 5 has 1 in March, 1 in April. District 6 had 2 in March and 0 in April. Dogs deemed dangerous by district. District 1 had 0 in March, 1 in April. District 2 had 0 in March, 1 in April. District 3 had 0 and 0 for both March and April. District 4 was 3 in March, 1 in April. District 5 was 0 in March, 0 in April, and District 6 was 0 and 0. Does anybody have any questions over the stats? Anybody have any questions about what's going on at the animal shelter? Animal services?
Our euthanasias, so far this year, how do we stand on that? I guess I just looked it up and on the website, it still has only January and February stats.
That's 2022.
No, we should have, we didn't have the other stats on there yet?
I said January and February of 2021 stats.
That's what you've seen on the website?
Yeah.
Right, because these I get these stats.
Oh, because this is,
I think
I
the
did-
ones that Elaine is referring to are the 2020 full stats are not in the 2020 meeting notes.
Okay, so we need to.
We just need to upload the 2020 full year stats to the January, what you
Okay.
reported then. Because it just says in the notes that you reported and the printout is not attached.
Okay, so you just need to attach.
Correct. Thank you.
Send it to me.
We will get that attached, thank you.
All right, did you have any other questions? Because the
Yeah.
stats usually, I get the stats for the previous month on the 15th.
okay.
So I give the supervisors and staff the time to put together the stats for the previous month. So I get them then, and then I go ahead and present them.
So I'll just check back in another week or two for the last 2 months for
For March and April.
for this year. Yeah, I know, but don't we,
I
are
usually,
you less, do we have, are you just listing fewer stats now than last year?
no, we've listed the same exact stats year in, year out. We're just doing better overall with our euthanasia.
Oh, because I thought the euthanasias and like cat bites were on there somewhere and,
We would track like dangerous dog, like those types of stats, but I don't ever remember us doing cat bites individually.
but I thought,
The only thing we keep track of the cats on are on the euthanasia.
and
On the
I,
bite stats, we only do the dogs.
so were the euthanasia stats, are those just year end?
No, we give those at the,
I have what's going on for this month.
Okay, so when I look at in a week or two to see if they're updated, then I'll,
well, these
I
will
will
just.
I send the whole package of stats for a public information officer. Our public information officer will place them on the animal services page.
that's all I'm at, thank you. I'll just check.
Any other questions? Anything on?
I'm good. The only thing that, it's not for you on YouTube, thank you very much. We do have one question from YouTube. It says, is Richard, Rick, and Mike on remote? To answer that question, we are not on remote today. We have gone back to full in-person meetings. This was our first one. The Education Committee will be in person as well. They did let me know today at Mike at 1:33, Richard at 3:02, and Rick at 3:14 that they were unable to attend today's meeting. So they did let us know it was just in a little short order. So we'll continue today because we do have 5% quorum. So I don't know what the next thing is referring to. It says nothing will. Jonathan, if you'd like to clarify what nothing will something, I guess. So, awesome. Thank you, Lieutenant Hungria. Do we have any new business from the board? Seeing none. All right, into old business here. We have Elaine Stevens. She's going to be talking about the updated responsible pet owner pamphlet.
We had a meeting last Wednesday, and in that meeting, we basically assigned what we had talked about the previous month. And so, I guess since it's been 2 months since this board met, in April, the subcommittee decided that we'll focus education efforts in 3 areas. That on pet restraint, so keeping your dogs restrained or on a leash, keeping your cats indoors, and then also the second area was microchipping and keeping your animal's microchip information up to date. And the third area was spaying and neutering your pets and making sure that gets done. So at the last meeting of last week, we kind of assigned out how we're going to work on things. One idea that we had for education was when people move and they submit a change of address form, the postmaster will send out a welcome kit after that change of address form is received. And that welcome kit usually has a list of places that somebody who's moving needs to notify of the change of address. And so I know Richard is working right now to see if we can get the postmaster to include just like a line that says, update your pet's microchip information on that form that already goes out. The other thing that we are working on, so Mike Marlett is working to see, he's checking with WSU to see if they might be able to help with statistical collection and analysis so that we can get a better idea of where we need to target our education efforts. And when we know where and who we need to target with education, then we can work on the means for education. And then I am in the process of contacting the city's communications department to see if we can use city social media channels and other platforms as a way to educate on these 3 topics. And so we do still need to schedule our next meeting since they'll need to be in person instead of by Zoom going forward. So, but we can do that thanks to the presentation. We can do that by email and make sure everyone can attend.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then I have, no comment on that one. So, okay. Thank you very much, Elena. I appreciate it. Next up would be a discussion of owned cats, which was brought forward by Richard Ruth. And from our last meeting, we talked about the cat discussion here about the creating an owned cat ordinance for the city of Wichita. Dr. Jones, who's been brought to our board, has a wealth of knowledge in the cat industry, I suppose. Is there anything that you would like to add from last month's discussion to this month's discussion?
On owned cats?
On owned cats, yes.
Well, I wasn't at last month's meeting, so I know that they were talking about
had actually brought up why owned cats were a concern, and so thus kind of spiraled us into the education committee. And so with the education of what Elaine's group is doing and bringing forward, would that help reduce some of the, I guess, pet owners that are failing to make amends, to make those things happen, keeping your cat indoors, making sure that they're spayed or neutered and vaccinated and microchipped. With that, I don't know further how much more that discussion can continue without something brought forward from the education committee, that we have something to kind of lay down with people who continue to have to reclaim their animal at the shelter or and so on and so forth. So if anyone would like to make a motion about owned cats, we can do that, or we can push forward into after Elaine's group has finished their research and put together any type of communication that they would like to bring forward to not just our board, but to the public as well. Make sure we don't have any public comment. Typically we do. Any from in here? Okay. So we can move forward into the next discussion about TNR. This has been a very hot discussion. It kind of snowballed into both with owned cats and last time and about TNR. So I know that I did receive a email from Alley Cat Allies. They sent us this morning about effective cat management policies. Zach, I will forward this to you so you can include, so you don't have to write all of this down. Alley Cat Allies basically said over 650,000 supporters. They are writing to us to urge us to reject any further consideration of any cat leash law and to work instead in the adoption of proven programs that are based on science and offer real solutions with cats. Alley Cat Allies is the global engine for cats, change in cats. They protect and improve lives, and our initiative is cutting-edge programs. We have assisted hundreds of municipalities over the past 3 decades, and our model approaches are now being carried out in many different environments and effectively with measurable results. Cat leash laws result in more cats being killed. Cat laws mandating that cats either be kept indoors or leashes will increase the burden of already understaffed Wichita Animal Services and increase the number of cats impounded and killed in shelters. This cascading effect will greatly increase the financial burden of the city when the budget is stretched to its maximum. Leash laws are especially lethal for community cats who do not have owners to leash them and whose home is outdoors. These animals have been living outdoors in close proximity to humans for over 10,000 years. Leash laws allow animal control to pick them up, bring them to shelters where virtually 100% of them will be killed. Leash laws are difficult and expensive to enforce, leading to some jurisdictions to repeal these laws once they discover that they are overly costly, ineffective, and even counterproductive. Even the National Animal Care and Control Association opposes animal control intake of free-roaming cats, stating that if the position of NACA is to indiscriminate pickup or emission of healthy free-roaming cats, regardless of temperament for any purposes other than TNR or SNR, fails to serve the commonly held goals of a community animal management and protection program, and as such is a misuse of time and public funds and should be avoided. I have attached their position statement and full review of its details and citations. We have assisted numerous agencies and governments to develop life-saving policies that would have been proven to work. We would like to help Wichita in the same way. Please let us know when you would be available to discuss how Alley Cat Allies can share the benefit of our expertise and experience to help Wichita citizens and cats. Thank you, Becky Robinson, President and Founder. And the enclosure that they did is the animal control intake of free-roaming cats. And we will share this out to the group as well. I'll forward this out to you all. I wanted to make sure that you had heard the letter prior to our discussion, because I think that this is important, that we're being contacted not just by local agencies and local community groups to help with the TNR discussion, but outside of our area as well. So wanted to make sure that we brought that forward. Do we have more discussion as it regards to TNR? I know that we have essentially beat this topic to death with no resolution. And I would like to see us today do something that we can either move forward with, or I think that the owner pamphlet is something that's going to be well received with the public as well. Whenever we went through the pamphlet with the dangerous dogs and how that works and the changes that were made to the ordinance, then it was very well received, and the postmaster was very open to helping at that time as well. So, do we have any other comments about TNR today?
Well, I'd like to make a motion to send a note of support from the Wichita Animal Services Advisory Board for TNR, and to remove any adverse legal ramifications for TNR organizations and allow them to continue their good work.
Do I have any discussion? Or I'm sorry, do I have a second of that motion?
I'll second.
Thank you. And for discussion today, do we have any more discussion from our board?
Just a quick question.
Okay.
With this motion, would this make the other organizations eligible for grants for TNR work? How does that exactly work?
So with a letter of support from this board, we would push forward our motion to the Wichita City Council, and it would behoove them to follow those recommendations. However, it still is in their purview to make any recommendation and/or changes to the ordinance that currently disallow TNR organizations to continue to legally operate in the city of Wichita.
Thank you.
Anyone else here from the board? Anyone from the public? Yes.
You want me to step up here? Do I need
Yes,
to
please.
use my-
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christy Fisher with Wichita Animal Action League. I just wanted to say that I support the idea for the board to go ahead and pass this along to City Council for a possible ordinance. Obviously, what we've been doing for decades in regards to community tax is not working, so it's time to consider something different. It's time to think outside the box, or at least around here it is. They've been doing this in communities across the country, and they're seeing good results, so it's time to try something new. Obviously, I don't think any groups involved are asking for the city to allocate resources for TNR. We understand that that's not a possibility. But again, we would just appreciate not only the board, but eventually City Council in knowing that this is the right thing to do, it's the humane thing to do, and again, what we're doing is not working. So we've got to continue and move forward and gain some traction. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Yes.
and with the education side of things, looking at the owned cats and an emphasis on keeping owned cats inside and getting them spayed and neutered, that helps make sure that we're kind of cutting off the flow coming from owned cats. And so TNR is the logical step on the other side, dealing with the unowned cats, to help form kind of a wraparound approach in ending this overpopulation that we have in town. So,
Okay, I need a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, any issues and updates from board members? This is an opportunity for any board members to report any activities, events, or concerns in their district. It's gonna be a short meeting today, fellas. All right, let me see if we have any more public comment. Okay, we have none. Our next meeting is July 21st, 2021 at 4 p.m. here at the Kansas Humane Society. I need a motion for adjournment, please.
I move we adjourn.
Second,
I second.
any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, ladies, for your attendance today.